everybody, this is Denny.
And this is James from TDB, bringing you episode number 108. So we are continuing along with our raw tour, and so today
Fantastic.
we have a tea that I've actually reviewed twice on my in-between episode. So this is my Shagwan tool.
Nice.
And so now we're bringing it into the big leagues with Mr. Chapin. Go Sonics.
Never forget.
Yeah, never forget.
Never forget.
When our basketball team was stolen. That's right, we're getting political.
We might get another one back, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, we have a daily drinker from the James camp. Always fun to experience these. Because I'm daily drinkers for me, when I find one, it's not that it's like the craziest tea in the world at all. I mean, that's probably why it's a daily drinker. You get a lot of it. It's just kind of perfect. It kind of fits whenever. And it's always reliably good. So I'm excited to try this.
Yep. And so last episode I had mentioned that Denny had wanted to explore a few more aged raw pours, stuff that might be a little bit easier on the stomach. So we reviewed a Yunnan sourcing tea last time. This one's from White2Tea. And, I've reviewed this a couple times, so I'm sure you may or may not already know about it.
Right.
But it's definitely far more humid than the previous tea, but it's also been dried out and aired out really nicely, so I think it also has a pretty nice, clean taste. And so it's very attractive to me for those reasons.
And the liqueur is just perfect. There's no, I don't see any sediment or any particulate in it at all. So that speaks to the cake and the quality going on in maintaining the cake. And look at how red that is. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
And so that, it's interesting. Why is it that some raws are going to show really in that like yellow category?
Sniff?
Yeah, I smell this. Some of them show more of that orange, and then some of them show more of that red.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the orange is on the way to the red.
Ooh, wow. Very different. Some really nice flavors in there. I'm excited to try this.
Yep. So unlike the last tea, I think this would probably be one of the friendliest teas on your stomach in the morning, similar to a ripe pour.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because it's fully mature.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a very deep red color here.
And so when you say fully mature, for folks out there who might not know what you mean, what do you mean exactly by that?
I mean, it's no longer a teenager. It's not been a dick to its parents. And it may or may not have graduated college. It has a steady job. It's kind of like a stage that's not super easy to define. It's just like a tea that's very brown, I guess, and fully fermented. But you could also be fully fermented and you could be kind of nasty.
Right.
So you could be like a criminal and you would still be fully mature. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, before we go off with our weird analogies. So I don't know. It's a difficult one to define, and I think it could mean different stuff to different people.
Right.
I mean, the Hong Kong and the Southeast Asian people that traditionally consume pu'er always like to drink it a lot darker, and so this would be sort of akin to that style. Whereas something like the tea that we drank in TDB episode 107 would probably not be classified. It'd probably be semi-aged or semi-mature.
Yeah.
Wow. How fitting.
Our production staff is very clever, and they do these weird sound effects in the background. We don't know why.
Yeah.
But here in the sound studio in LA that we record at, it's just beautiful.
You mean Taiwan? This is a mountain.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Damn. So different. So interesting because, so the idea of maturity in pu'er, to me, means sort of that this tea isn't going to budge that much. It's not going to, like, really change a whole bunch in the near future. It might get a little bit more subtle. Some flavors might die out a little bit. But it's sort of reached its maturation point. It's reached that place where the fermentation process has kind of, like, reached its limit a little bit. It's kind of like certain cultures that you would grow, they reach a certain point and they stop growing because they can't grow in the medium anymore.
Yeah, or certain whiskeys get to a certain age, and then you should drink it.
Right.
It's not going to get much better.
Right, exactly. And this is a perfect example of that because it is so round. There's no intense flavor bumps at all. It's really smooth. It's really well balanced. Zero bitterness. Just wonderful mouthfeel.
Very smooth.
It's a little bit light still, but...
Yep, and you can see that the liqueur is even darker for the next steep.
This is really good. Really good. Off of the nose, I was getting a hint of a little bit of cinnamon and plum, and maybe some of those like roasted oolong flavors somewhat. But actually, this is tasting a little bit more of that sort of vegetal, mineral-y garden patch, like you were mentioning pre-show. So I'm enjoying this a lot.
In comparison, one of the other White2Tea more mature pours that they sell is the Tea Pai 7532. So I think that tea tends to hit a lot of the higher notes, and this one has more of a lower, bassier texture to it, a little bit more oily, is how I've had it described to me before.
Interesting.
And kind of more appealing in sort of like those deep earth aspects.
Definitely. It does not taste vegetal and crisp. It tastes vegetal and earthy. It tastes vegetal and deep. And it's really smooth. I can't, again, that's the thing that's kind of getting me the most is I totally agree with James's assessment. I could just wake up and have a cup of this. And
so daily drinker in this instance, I will not say means that it's cheap.
Got it.
Because this tea, it's a tea from the 1990s, presumably, and it sells for about $150 a cake. So it's not cheap, but it's if you were to do some sort of cost analysis versus Taiwanese oolongs and stuff like that, you could potentially rationalize it pretty easily. Believe me, I've done it. I drink poo.
Yeah. And use a smaller gaiwan to conserve your leaf.
Yeah.
But don't mess up by not brewing enough with enough leaves.
Yeah.
I think you'd lose the beauty of this tea if you just sort of tried to conserve as much as possible. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also interesting because I think there's like these fully mature pours or these more aged pours have very specific tastes that I often struggle how to place exactly. There's a very specific sort of like fruity taste that comes out from these that I want to have in the past described as like sort of lychees or long on fruits and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's like really the best description for it. But you do start to pick up on some of those things with this tea.
I could definitely see the lychee part, for sure. I mean, it's subtle, yeah. But lychee, the flavor of lychee is subtle. This is hitting the spot. I would say this is definitely on the fringes of the raw categories. At least, okay, that's not accurate. This is... It's going to take time to be able to be drinking a raw pour that tastes like this. It has the level of maturity that this would. And comparing it to our last tea that we did, it's not nearly as smoky, not nearly as peaty, not nearly as... Interestingly enough, it doesn't taste as old to me.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know how I would describe that.
Even though the leaves are like much darker.
Right. And so, is there a difference in the base processing with something like this versus
something like the previous?
Yeah, because this is clearly the leaves are very dark.
I think most of the differences, and I don't want to discount processing differences because I don't know. Yeah. And it's possible that they could have been processed somewhat differently, but I think most of the differences have come in the storage of the tea.
And the aging.
So, this tea is one of those teas that Paul over at White2Tea acquired, and it's not really clear what the origins are. He discovered it maybe like a year ago, and he thought it was really good for the price that he could get it for, which is kind of how it became available, and like, he's not entirely sure what its lifetime has been. But from tasting this is very clean, in my opinion, for a fully mature pu'er.
Yeah.
You can get really nasty vegetalness, and you don't really get that here. I think it's very smooth. And so from that, we can kind of presume that it's sort of like a Hong Kong-style tea is how he markets it.
Got it. Yeah, there's a there's a little layer of a really nice cooling herbal vibe on this.
Yep.
Not quite menthol, but maybe something like rosemary. It kind of leaves that sort of cooling feeling in your mouth. Interestingly enough, I'm really warm, but this feels like a cooling tea to me.
Yeah, a little mintiness.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, folks out there, please do check out White2Tea, white2tea.org.
.com.
Yeah, this is really, really nice.
Yeah. And this is usually the tea that I recommend to people that are interested in mature pu'er, just because I think it's got a friendlier taste. It's not overly nasty, but it's also very typical of what you are kind of shooting for, or at least the Hong Kong style is shooting for.
It's delicious. It's got a nice, beautiful body. It's complex, but not disturbing in how it crosses your palate. Really, really delicious tea. Yeah. So, if someone wanted to learn more about the tea plant,
they should come check us out at tdb.org. I've reviewed this tea 3 times now, so go check out the other 2 reviews. Hit the subscribe button below. We're releasing a few videos a week, so please check those out. And thank you guys for watching. And also check out this tea at White2Tea.
Yeah.
I think it might hit the spot.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.